It was a very inspiring speech today. I learned a lot about Kashmir and their pain and going through all these events and all. But recent events, particularly in India, happened the 370 article. Before and after, what are the implications? Because before everybody thought that it was helping, but now after 370 abrogation, is going to help this Kashmiri
Okay,
issue now?
so I think by now, because of media, a lot of people know that Kashmir was one of the most discriminated places in India. And after the integration of Kashmir with India, now the whole of India has one flag, one constitution, and one geographical boundary. I think this was something which was not solved for a long time. But as far as the lockout you are talking about, I think the Western media is creating unnecessary hype around it. Because if you look at it in the last 3-4 months, whenever they tried to take out this internet lockdown, the minute they take out, all these unruly and terror-oriented mobs come out and they start killing people. In Since the abrogation of 370, there has been no civil casualty. Nobody has been killed in firing by the army or CRPF or police. I am very, very hopeful. When you solve something which remained unsolved, messy and complex for so long, it takes little time. I think what we need is we have become very impatient, or we have to give ourselves little time. And like the Council General of India yesterday said, that where everybody's political thinking stops, that's where the new government's political thinking begins. So I have a lot of confidence in the leadership of my government, current government right now, Mr. Narendra Modi, and the way they have handled it was very clean. Because imagine if somebody had done it 10 years ago, there would have been a bloodbath.
Yes.
And it's a two-pronged attack. Not only they have integrated Kashmir with India and solved it for the future generations, they have also isolated a terror country, Pakistan. And slowly you will find that Pakistan's relevance in India's scheme of things is diminishing, and I think that is now going to take our energies into more constructive affair. And I think in long run, this is going to prove to be one of the greatest decisions. Thank you.
Um, I strongly believe that denying a genocide is committing genocide 2.0. So the first thing I'm trying to do is raise awareness and recognize and address the issue of Kashmiri Hindu genocide and exodus, and also address the issue that there are still a lot of Kashmiri Hindus living in refugee camps in Jammu. Little small kids living in camps with no money, no proper housing, no food, no water, no electricity, in really horrible conditions. So I hope that we as a community can come together to help these people, those who have never been heard before. I request you all to become aware of what is happening in Kashmir and to support the cause of Kashmiri Hindus. Thank you. Namaskar, good evening everyone. I'm a Kashmiri Hindu and I'm speaking on behalf of all of our community. Today we had Vivek Agnihotri talk about his upcoming movie, The Kashmir Files, which addresses a lot of the untold stories of the genocide and exodus that happened in Kashmir in the 1990s. He also spoke about a lot of stories which probably were very new, appalling, shocking, but were brutally the true stories.
Hello, my name is Arunima. I was here for Vivek Agnihotri's talk on his upcoming film Kashmir Files. It wasn't about the movie actually. He spoke a lot in general about the Kashmir Valley and what has happened in all these years, and he brought awareness to the events that have happened or that are happening and what to expect in future. All of us actually learned a lot today. Even after all the facts he mentioned, I think it was just the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot more to know. And being a creative person, I think his film will bring in a lot of education about this issue, and it will enlighten us more. And I personally asked him how he would contribute apart from just bringing awareness, how a community can protect themselves from this kind of events in future. He said he will discuss about that and in the movie, and he's also he also has plans to create more awareness about this. So it was a very, very well organized event, and he's a very powerful speaker. And there were other Kashmiri Pandits who shared their stories. And it was, I really appreciate their courage that they've gone through all these and gathered the strength to share that with us. So I wish them all the best, and we are looking forward to more positive things about Kashmir, and hope to visit the valley soon, and all the good things to happen. Thank you. హలో అండి, నా పేరు అరుణిమ. ఇవాళ ప్యాలెస్ ఆఫ్ ఏషియాలో కింగ్స్టన్, న్యూ జెర్సీ మేమంతా గ్యాదర్ అయ్యాం ఇక్కడ టు లిసన్ టు మిస్టర్ వివేక్ అగ్నిహోత్రి, ద ఫిల్మ్ డైరెక్టర్, హూ ఇస్ అప్కమింగ్ ఫిల్మ్, అంటే ఆయన తీయబోయే ఫిల్మ్ కాశ్మీర్ ఫైల్స్ గురించి, ప్లస్ కాశ్మీర్ వ్యాలీ గురించి, వాళ్ళ బాధలు, వాళ్ళు ఏమేమి సఫర్ అయ్యారు ఇన్ని ఏళ్ళ నుంచి, అవన్నీ మాకు చెప్పారు. అంతా వివరించిన తర్వాత కూడా మాకు చాలా కొంచెమే తెలుసు ఈ విషయం గురించి అన్నది మాకు అర్థమైంది అందరికీ. సో మేము ఆయన వీఆర్ సపోర్టింగ్ దట్ హీస్ టుక్ అప్ ఎ వెరీ బ్రేవ్ స్టెప్ అండ్ వెరీ చాలా పెద్ద ప్రాజెక్ట్ ఇది. అయితే ఇది ఒక్క టాక్ తోటి, ఒక్క సినిమా తోటి అయ్యేది కాదని మాకు అందరికీ తెలుసు. కానీ ఒక్కొక్క స్టెప్ వేసుకుంటూ పోతే ఫ్యూచర్ వీ కెన్ సాల్వ్ సంథింగ్. డెఫినెట్లీ ఆ ఫీలింగ్ అయితే వచ్చింది. అదర్ కాశ్మీరీ పండిట్స్ కూడా ఇక్కడ వచ్చి వాళ్ళ స్టోరీస్ షేర్ చేశారు. చాలా ధైర్యంగా వాళ్ళ బాధలు ఎంత ఉన్నా కూడా అది పాజిటివ్గానే ఆ స్టోరీ అందరికీ చెప్పి, సో అది మాకు చాలా బాగా అనిపించింది. చాలా మంచిగా ఆర్గనైజ్ చేశారు. ఆయన చాలా పవర్ఫుల్ స్పీకర్, చాలామందిని ఇన్స్పైర్ చేశారు. ఇవాళ మమ్మల్ని అందరిని ఎంకరేజ్ కూడా చేశారు. స్టెప్స్ తీసుకొని కొంచెం
focused on the not on the violence part, but it is on the
how to build the future
suffering part,
ఎట్లా
to bring out the sufferings, and
how
that
to
way
highlight them and
highlight the sufferings, and they learn from that and tell the young generation,
future generations
not to happen these type of events in future. So that was the message from Vivek Agnihotri. So we learned a lot about that part, and it is our job to take that to the next level.
అంటే
Mahendra Aluri from New Jersey.
then Mahendra Gurai. There were many things. He was trying to bring out the bigger picture of what Kashmir is. He didn't want to politicize it, or then he didn't want to point fingers or anything of that sort, but he wanted to bring out the gravity of what had happened. అది బయటకు తీసుకొచ్చి let the public know, so that the future as a society, as a country, as a state, as human beings, we make sure that these things don't occur or happen with media, with fake news. The real issues and real happenings have been put under the rug, whereas all the political issues, vested interests, those issues are being magnified, and the real issues are being suppressed.
రోజు న్యూస్లో రెగ్యులర్గా చిన్న యాక్సిడెంట్ అయితేనో ఏదో గొడవ అయితేనో దాన్ని హైలైట్ చేసి చూపిస్తారు. కానీ ఇట్లాంటి విషయాలు ఎందుకు ప్రపంచం అందరికీ ఎందుకు తెలియజేయడం లేదు? ప్రపంచమే కాదు, ఇండియాలోనే అందరికీ తెలియదు అన్నది ఆయన ఇవాళ ఎంఫసైజ్ చేశారు. సో మమ్మల్ని అందరినీ కూడా ఎంకరేజ్ చేశారు. ఇట్లే పిల్లల్ని ఎడ్యుకేట్ చేస్తే వాళ్ళకి తెలుస్తుంది ఇటువంటివి జరగొద్దు, ఆర్ ఇటువంటివి ఏవి చెయ్యొద్దు. అన్నది. సో నేను అతన్ని ఒక ప్రశ్న అడిగాను, ఇది మీరు ఉట్టి అవేర్నెస్ కోసమే చేస్తున్నారా, లేకపోతే మనల్ని మనము ఆర్ ఎనీ కమ్యూనిటీ ఫ్యూచర్లో ఇట్లాంటివి జరగకుండా ఎట్లా ప్రొటెక్ట్ చేసుకోవాలి అన్నది కూడా చేస్తారంటే ఆయన తప్పకుండా దాని గురించి కూడా మూవీలో కానీ ఆయన రియల్ లైఫ్లో కూడా దాని గురించి ఆయనకి ప్లాన్ ఉంది అని చెప్పారు.
Pocket so that they can survive for 3 days, and brainwashed them, and these young boys came and killed hundreds of people in that hotel. They burned that hotel, opened grenades there, and that great tomb, which represents hundreds of years of service to humanity, came toppling down. That day, we didn't know how to tell our children that we cannot go to Goa. We cancelled it. It was so painful, it was so sorrowful that I have no words to describe. If cancelling one holiday, a 3-day holiday, gave us so much of pain and grief, imagine about the families and those innocent little girls and all those young men, women, lovers, fathers, children who were celebrating going back from home. Just think about their pain. Today is that day. In India, it's already 26/11. In the memory, I request you, in the memory of all those victims, not only those victims, but victims of terrorism all over the world, let's stand and just think about them for 30 seconds. Thank you, everybody. Human beings, at some point of time, if we believe Darwin, which we must believe, were animals. Then slowly their brain grew. They started standing on their own feet. And they started imagining. What differentiates human beings from animals is that imagination, that power of creativity. God's two biggest gifts to humankind, one is breathing, because we breathe so we are alive. And everything else is bogus. The only another gift that we live in this world is our power to imagine and being creative. You look around us, everything you have, right from this glass to all these live technology, cameraman, you can't think of world without something. Everything has been created by human beings. We have been so creative that we have been able to conquer the nature. We have gone to the depths of the sea, we have gone to the skies, we have found new planets, and not only that, we have created systems like religion, politics, democracy, equality, liberty, freedom. These are all human imagination. What went wrong? That on one hand, humanity, our creativity, was ensuring that poverty slowly goes down, unemployment goes down, inequality goes down, we got rid of slavery, we got rid of dictators, fascists, Stalins, Mussolinis, Hitlers. But what is the reason that despite such astronomical growth in science, technology, humanity, human rights, UNO, And despite our best efforts, art and literature, in last few decades, terrorism has been growing and killing innocent people. Today, the biggest threat is terrorism. I used to be a young boy. I came to US with a dream to live here. I applied for green card, but then for some reason I went back to India. I thought I will become part of a new India and we'll again lead the world. I used to live in one of the most posh colonies, localities, neighborhoods of India, and there was a roommate of mine. He was a Sikh. Sikh are the people, sir, who wear turban. It's just an extension of Hinduism, but it's a faith within a faith. A great warriors. Generations after generations, their people have fought for the nation to save women. And they have every one person in a Sikh family definitely joins Indian Army. There was a time in 1984. My roommate, on that day he left. He was a Sikh. In the evening he didn't come back. He didn't come back for a long time, but when he came back, he was bleeding and his turban was burned by some people, his beard was burned by some people, and he was humiliated, kicked in his balls, and he was bleeding everywhere. He was attacked because the Prime Minister of India was killed by 2 Sikh bodyguards. Before that, the same Prime Minister had sent army tanks into Golden Temple, which is one of the most, the shrine, the Sikh shrine, because that had become a hideout for terrorists, Sikh terrorists. Since then, there has not been a week or a day in my country where I have not heard about some terrorist explosion, bomb blast. There was a time in Mumbai, there were 13 bomb blasts within 2 hours or within very short time at different places. They killed so many innocent people. We have still not recovered from that. Our neighboring country, Afghanistan, has been a victim of terrorism. Pakistan, however much politically we hate them or whatever we do, they have been victim of terrorism. Iraq, Syria, everywhere you see in the world, USA has been victim of terrorism. Britain has been a victim of. There is no country in this world, no society in this world which has not been a victim of terrorism. There was a young girl from Baroda. Gujaratis are very peaceful people. They have nothing to do with terrorism. And this young girl came to meet me and she wanted to become an actress. And she showed me a picture. She said, I have improved, I have done acting classes. And she said, okay, I'll meet you in first week of January. I said, meet me in December. She said, no, I'm going out for Christmas holiday somewhere in Europe. I'll meet you in first week of January. On 31st December in Istanbul, in a nightclub she was celebrating, some terrorists came, they shot, and she got killed. I was supposed to meet her on the 4th or 3rd of January. I never got to meet her. She had nothing to do with the terrorism of Istanbul or Turkey. She was a young aspiring actor, a creative person who wanted to bring out emotions, various emotions. She wanted to introduce you to different characters of the world. She was actually a medium to expose us to different diversity. She was killed, innocent girl, in Istanbul, far away from her parents, the only child. There are millions of instances like this. The reason I'm starting this discourse with terrorism is because no other place in this world has been a victim of such intense, regular, continuous terrorism as Kashmir. But very few people in this world know about it. Just to give you an example, when I was driving here, a Kashmiri young bright scholar in Annapolis in St. John's College. She was with me on the line and she was narrating something to me. There is a 90-year-old professor in St. John's College. Her name is Anne Brand. Sorry if I am if I'm not. Yeah, Eva Brand. I'm sorry. Eva Brand. She comes from Jewish community. She has been awarded for the Award for Excellence in Humanity. Her work in humanity is immense. She's a very knowledgeable person, very aware person. She's authored many books. And when this lady, her name is Dimple Kaul, she's a Kashmiri young bright scholar, she met her and they discussed for 90 minutes or whatever long duration. And she told her about the Kashmiri genocide. But Professor Eva Brand didn't know about it. And when she heard her story, she couldn't believe that she didn't know about it. She didn't know that a community which is diminishing, you can call it a community which is slowly becoming extinct. Not too many people, just 750,000 people in the world and about 450,000 people lived in the Kashmir Valley. They were thrown out of their homes. There was a genocide. Hundreds and thousands of people were killed, women were raped, children were shot with AK-47, and such massacres took place. And this professor of the world's greatest country, St. John's, and a wonderful person, amazing person, didn't know about this. And this is what I want to focus on. Why? Why is it that in a globalized world where it takes half a second for terrorists to spread rumors, false news, fake news, and hundreds and thousands of young boys and girls come out with guns and stones and they start killing people? Why is it that in such a globalized world, we are not being able to create awareness about the tragedies of rest of the communities? When I came here, my friends from the Jewish community, they requested me that we don't know much about it, therefore I should tell more about the Kashmiri genocide. I am no scholar of Kashmir politics. But for last 1.5 years, I have been researching on Kashmir. And I thought it's going to be easy to make a film because everything is available in books, textbooks, newspapers, and Google. And I was very confident that yes, we can make a great film because it's a great human tragedy. People like to consume such stories. But sir, I must tell you, I was absolutely wrong. When I started listening to the pain and suffering of very, very ordinary people, people who are just statistics. Tomorrow, if they are not in this world, only one number will be reduced. Nobody will even know them. When I started talking to them, who live in refugee camps, who have no money, then I said that this is not just about a movie. This is about me. It's about my life. It's about the purpose, what I want to, why am I here? Why thousands of years ago, we stood up on our feet, we started imagining, and we said we have to create a world, we have to explore and find out what is the ultimate truth. And that's why we created religion and politics. All the gods we know about have been created by us. I'm not against believers, I'm a believer myself. But why is it that we believe in things which we have created, which we don't know whether they exist or not, but we don't believe in things which actually happened, the killings of people, the sufferings of people, and the pain of people? Because of some crazy people. We have got best of the robots, we have got best of the arms. In fact, during Cold War, the two most powerful countries of the world, Russia and US, they have produced so many arms, that those arms people don't know how to consume. And that's why they go to these crazy people's hands and terrorism flourishes. So what happened in Kashmir? Kashmir, sir, was named after one of the greatest scientists of India. In India, these scientists and philosophers and researchers were called Rishi. Yeah. So one of the greatest, whatever you want to call the scholar, scientist, but definitely an enlightened person, Rishi Kashyap. So Kash, the word comes from there. That's why Kashmir is called Kashmir. Every single place in that region is named after some Hindu god or Hindu deity. The Hindu philosophy, the Hindu thought, starts with the metaphor of Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Hinduism does not believe in one god, because Hinduism believes that before Big Bang also there was some reality, and before that reality was also some reality. So we believe in the concept of the wholeness of the cosmos, and it starts with one shlok in Sanskrit, one sutra in Sanskrit, which says Tattvam Asi, which means thou art that, which means the smallest particle of your body, the smallest atom, is as powerful as the ultimate truth or the God or the super divine which we think of. So we thought of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. Brahma means who creates the world, Vishnu who preserves the world, who makes this world run, and Mahesh, the destroyer of the world, who is also called Shiva. Shiva is known for his cosmic dance. In Hindi it's called Tandav Nritya. I am telling you because it's important to understand this story. So Shiva's cosmic dance, later on many thousands and thousands, in fact when people didn't know about anything, at that time we imagined tens of thousands of years ago, much later the quantum physicist realized that the quantum physics is exactly what the cosmic dance of Shiva is all about. And therefore in Switzerland, outside the CERN building, the headquarters, you will see a big statue of Shiva doing his Tandav Nritya, the cosmic dance. That is the greatness of our philosophy. And all these three people were imagined to live in Himalayas. And the part of Himalaya was called Kashmir. In Hindu thought, we have three goddesses. One is Lakshmi, which is the goddess of wealth. One is Kali, Durga, goddess of power, strength. And Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge, the goddess of wisdom. It does not mean education, it's got nothing to do with literacy. And the abode of Saraswati was also Kashmir. The origin of Hindu philosophy, Hindu thought is from Kashmir. That is what the land of Kashmir is all about. Natya Shastra, the art of theatre. You name it, any kind of form of art, literature, any kind of understanding about the cosmos, you name great scientists, great people, one after another, were all from Kashmir. In rest of India, when people graduated, did their post-graduation, the cream de la cream, the best minds of India went to Kashmir. And after specializing, some people must have left and gone to rest different parts of the country, but the best minds of India, and India of that time was not limited to the geographical boundary which British people created for India. The Hindu civilization was spread from Iran to Indonesia, all up to Afghanistan. The influence of Hindu civilization was such that till the time Mughals came to India, which is just thousands of years ago, the total contribution of Indian GDP to the world GDP was 45% plus. And this statistics is not coming from India, this is coming definitely from the West. That was the power of Hindu civilization, and which is why you will see all the mightiest and greatest of the civilizations have perished. Roman civilization, Greek civilization, Aztec civilization, you name it, all of them have died. Only one civilization has survived continuously for tens of thousands of years, and that is Hindu civilization. Because why has it survived? We are not the richest country in the world anymore, because by the time British left India, looted us, that contribution of 45% GDP came down to 2%. All these big stone buildings and the great monuments of Britain and the Portuguese people and the Dutch people are built on the money, wealth, and the blood of Indians. This is the truth. Despite looting, despite invasion, despite burning our villages, despite destroying our temples, despite everything, we survived. Guess why we survived? We survived because we believe in humanity, because we believed in peace. The world's sorry to say that, I don't want to hurt anybody, but the most peaceful religions of the world were created in India. Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, and Hinduism. These four religions never ever invaded anyone. These four religions never ever destroyed anybody's idol or mosque or church or temple or any place of worship or beauty or love or human creation. Never ever. When the entire West with their guns and swords was trying to colonize the world, invade people, throw the indigenous people out and capture them and make their own illegally, what were we doing? We were trying to find what is beyond life. We were trying to find what is the ultimate truth. We were researching in our universities, in our colleges, in our society, what is our relationship with the cosmos, and which is why we invented zero, we gave astronomy to the world, and we gave so many different sciences of the world. We were creative people. And today, I'm very sad to say that neither the world knows about our greatness, nor they know about our pain and suffering. And then Kashmir, the most peaceful and the center of knowledge, though India created best of the universities of the world, Nalanda, there were 11 greatest universities of the world at that time. No other country can ever boast of that. All of them were burned down by Islamic invaders. All those books, the texts, were burned down by Islamic invaders. All our temples were broken, destroyed, burned down by Islamic invaders. India suffered Islamic invasion and European colonization. And as a result, what happened? We became subdued people. We became passive people. We stopped sharing our pain. And which is why the world makes fun of Indians, that Indians shake their head a lot. This is because they learned, because they had guns and we just had knowledge. And which is why I say when Islamic invaders came to Kashmir, they realized if you capture Kashmir, you have captured India. And not only India, Central Asia, because India's influence was all over Central Asia. And since then, this great place, one of the most beautiful places in the world, you must have heard a lot about Switzerland, but once make a trip to Kashmir after a few months. I request you, please make a trip, like you go to, for pilgrimage, make a trip to Kashmir. And if there's any heaven on this earth, it's in Kashmir. I'm not saying that. One of the greatest poets of the world, thousands of years ago, called Firdaus, when he reached from Middle East to India, He stopped on a mountain of Kashmir and then he wrote Gar Firdaus Ami Asto to Ami Asto to Ami Asto to Ami Asto, which means if there is heaven on this earth, it's here, it's here, it's here. Do you think such a great philosopher, do you think such a great philosopher wrote these precious lines only because there were beautiful mountains and meadows and rivers? He wrote it because there were beautiful people there. What are mountains without beautiful people? But 100% population which was Hindu, and not just Hindu, the masters, they are called Pandits, not because they were Brahmin, they are Pandits because they were masters. By the time British left India in 1947, 15th August, that demography had changed from 100% Hindus to only 2%, 5% Hindus, sorry, only 5% Hindus. 95% was Muslim population. By that time, hundreds of temples were destroyed. All over Afghanistan, there were Buddhas, one of the tallest statues. The tallest statues. For Statue of Liberty, people, children cry, Mama, I have to see Statue of Liberty. People come from Japan, Korea, Sri Lanka, everywhere to show Statue of Liberty. Look at those statues of Buddha, then you will understand what sculpting is all about. In those rough mountains, great, all of them were broken. Because for them, these people were kafirs. And to kill kafirs was their religion. I am not against any religion. I am not against any faith. I am talking about that aspect of religion which forces innocent, uneducated, poor people to go and destroy the creative excellence of humankind. So in 1947, this democracy changed to become only 5%. By 1990, that demography came down to 2%.
Vivek ji, you're not including Jammu, right?
No. Kashmir Valley I'm talking about. The reason I'm talking about Kashmir Valley is that people, when we say Kashmir, they talk only about Kashmir Valley. Now, what started happening, that when India got divided between Pakistan and India, Pakistan through illegal means, through terrorism, through invading India and all kinds of things, their only objective was to somehow free Kashmir from India. And that's why they were sending their army men. They were sending their army men disguised as tribesmen. And they would just infiltrate inside and they will start mobilizing fundamentalists. And because in villages there was a lot of illiterate young population, it was easy, and all they would say is that Islam is in danger, and then all these illiterate people with stones, they would go and they start throwing it on Hindu homes. Very few Pandit families were there. When India and Pakistan played cricket match, this is something which will surprise you. In modern world, people won't even believe it. Even I did not believe it when I heard these stories. But then every single Kashmiri I met who has lived in Kashmir told me this story. India, whenever India played with Pakistan, a cricket match, cricket is like a religion in our country, it's a great game. Whenever Indian batsmen scored many runs, the Muslim boys will come and start beating up Hindu boys and girls. Because Indians were winning. And when Pakistan won, again they will go and bully and beat up these young Hindu boys. They'll say, give us money because we have to celebrate because Pakistan has won. Can you believe it? All this was happening. World didn't know about this. All people kept focusing on was the Islamic story of Kashmir. Nobody cared about the Hindu story of Kashmir. Because from the global point of view, from these woke media and the intellectuals and the human rights people, they believed that India is a Hindu majority country. I'm sorry, despite all the education and the globalization and the technology, I find most of the world is so unaware about each other. All of us are so unaware about each other. Yes, India is a Hindu majority country. But in Kashmir, Hindus were just 2% and minority. They had no rights. They had absolutely no rights. In colleges, even if you get 100 on 100, it was impossible for you to get admission in engineering colleges and medical colleges, whereas a duffer who would get just 35%, he would get admission in those colleges because Hindus had no right to that kind of education. They were destroying temples, which means Hindus did not even have a right to believe and pray. Then the Muslim governments of Kashmir, one day they came with a crazy law and they said, we will take away the land from all these Hindus. And they did not compensate them. So they took their wealth, they took their land, they took their culture away, burned their books. One of the greatest languages, Sharda, which is the Lipi, that was changed, and then Urdu became the state language. Now imagine the cultural region, the state, which had Sharda Lipi, which is one of the greatest, and Sanskrit, which is one of the greatest languages of the world, which created so much of literature and the wealth of knowledge in that language, it was changed to Urdu. So culturally they were demoralized, they became minority, geographically, demographically, and socially. Socially, because all these Kashmiri people I have met, they tell me, all these young girls, all these women of Kashmiri Hindu families, they tell me they never got a chance to go out with their brothers. Because if they would go out with their brothers, then all these Muslim boys will taunt them and they will say very derogatory things. That's why they stopped going. Then in 1980s, slowly, what started happening was the identification and the profiling of Hindus. They were forced to put tilak. Tilak is the tika, the red thing, saffron we put on our heads. And even women, in India, women don't put tika generally. They were also forced to do that so that they can be identified and profiled. So you know these are Hindu people. Because the farran they wear, it's very difficult to figure out who's who. And they speak almost the same language. Then Hindu civilization has been so rich in art and literature, in dance, drama, our sculptures. You must have heard about Kama Sutra and all that. So you can imagine how liberal our society was. A society which makes sculptures and the statues of various forms of intercourse, how to make love on their temples. Imagine how liberal and progressive and scientific that society was. All the theatre was shut down. Nobody was allowed to sing songs except for namaz. Nobody was allowed to dance. There were just one or two, I think, few cinema halls. Kitne honge, ek ya do? Ek to tha, definitely I know it, in Srinagar. That cinema hall was shut down. No Bollywood movie was allowed in Srinagar. It used to be heaven for filmmakers. Total blackout, 100% blackout of art, literature and culture. People are talking about the blackout of 4G and internet. For last 40 years, there has been a complete blackout of art and literature. Which civil society in the world will allow that? Imagine America without any cinema hall. Imagine your life without an art. Imagine your life without television. And this I'm saying from my personal experience, because I was shooting a film in Kashmir and I wanted to use some girls, you know. It is very difficult to fly 30 girls from Mumbai. So I asked if I can get some girls to perform, just to stand in the background. And some rebellious Muslim girls somehow agreed from a college and they said, we'll come but don't tell anyone. I said, but when the film comes, they will get to know. They said, don't worry, nobody sees Bollywood films here because they're not allowed here. So these 30 girls come and they shoot with me in one of the most beautiful places on this earth. I'm telling you, I have traveled most of the world. It's called Sonmarg. You will never find such beauty. So we shot over there. We were supposed to finish the shooting, pack up at about 6 o'clock in the evening, but somehow we finished early. So I said, free these girls. So I left them at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock. When we were going back to Srinagar, which is about 2 hours, 3 hours away from this place, sir, you won't believe it, in recent times, just 4 years ago, in the dark of the night, hundreds of people with their torches stopped the caravan, the entire, the fleet of cars, and they started checking and profiling, take off your cap and everything, and they started checking all the crew. Everybody was scared because they were Farron, and their Farron was pointing out like that, which means they had guns inside. And people who did not have AK-47s and guns, they had big bamboo rods with them. I thought this is the end. Everybody in the unit thought that this is the last day. But people didn't have the guts to even send messages to their parents and call anybody because they were scared. Later on, after half an hour, 1 hour, they left us. They said, you can go. Do you know why we were stopped? Because they were looking for those girls who performed in our film. They wanted to kill them. They wanted to beat them up for acting. So there was a complete blackout, 100% blackout. But terrorists lust for blood. They want to terrorize you to such an extent that even if you live like a cripple. I'm sorry if it's not politically correct word, but in creative sense, it makes a lot of sense to me. And in January 1990, one night, from all the mosques, and they're mosques like you walk, they're mosques. Perhaps there are more mosques than the red lights in Manhattan. All those mosques at night, when all the people were watching a movie, at that time movie used to come on television, they were watching a movie, all the mosques started blaring, they have loudspeakers, big loudspeakers there. They were saying, either you convert, become Muslim, change your faith, or you leave or you die. Ralif, Galif, Salif. Which translates to either convert, leave or die. And leave how? There was a condition to leaving. Leave, but leave your women behind for us and you leave. Then they pasted posters outside identified houses which they had profiled, who they gave a notice within 36 hours or 48 hours you leave, otherwise we'll kill you. And they actually killed those people. And how they killed are such horrifying stories. She narrated some of them. I have actually met these people. 2 of them are sitting here. Today, the lady in the white shawl, we were talking to her old mother, whose father was shot in broad daylight as he was waiting for the bus to go, and he was shot. She's sitting here. The other lady who's sitting here, she told me a horror story, how they had to just leave one night. They had a 4 floors, big, huge mansion. In America, it would be called mansion, but mansions also don't have 4 floors. They had 4 floors. And they had to leave one night. They just had to leave with 1 suitcase. Somebody I met 2 days ago, they were saying they left in 2 different shoes. And the people who had seen beautiful nature and who lived in Kashmir Valley suddenly had to run. The taxis were not taking them, buses were not taking them. They had to go in trucks where all the stuff is loaded, and they had to sit there, and they reached Jammu. And hundreds were killed on their way to Jammu because when buses were going, they were stopped. People were taken out, profiled, who's a Muslim and who's a Hindu. Hindus were shot at, Muslims were left. Now you tell me, did you ever hear about these stories?
No.
Did you hear the story of this young man? They came looking for him, knocked on his door. He went and hid in the rice sack because in Kashmir, because of winter, they store wood and coal and rice for a long time. He went and hid in the rice sack and he told his wife, just tell them I'm not home. So she said he's not home and they were leaving. The neighbor who has grown up with this man, they have learned alphabets together, they have learned about their names together, they have learned about the names of the fruits and the trees and the names of the mountain peaks, everything together. They have learned about the birds and the bees together. That neighbor shouted and said, he's hiding inside. So they came back. They came back and shot him. The entire sack of rice was drenched with his blood. And then they put the gun, because they had a small child. They put a gun on the child's head, on his head here. And they said, we leave you only, they told the wife, we leave him only if you eat this rice. And they made that woman eat the rice drenched in the blood of her innocent husband. Do you know about this? I don't want to tell so many stories because there is no point. You have to sleep tonight. I don't want these things to haunt you. You have understood the intensity. I was told by somebody, a scholar, he said, see, you don't have to listen to hundreds of stories. They are very, very sad stories. He told me, I'll just tell you one story which can pass off as a compassionate killing. And which is that when few terrorists were shot and they were injured and they needed blood, since there was curfew and the blood was not easily available, so the doctors must have told them that this rare group of blood is some Kashmiri Hindu family, they have their children, their sons have this blood. So they go there and they say, they ask the sons to come with them, otherwise they will shoot everybody. So these two young boys readily said, okay, we'll come and give the blood so that my family is saved. And they go to the hospital. In the meantime, these people go and kill the family while they are giving the blood. The story doesn't end here. When they were giving blood, how much? 1 bottle, 2 bottles are required. All that blood was taken which was required for the terrorists, but they did not stop there. They kept taking out the blood. They sucked the entire blood as they were alive on the stretcher. These two young boys died there. Imagine the kind of pain and suffering they had. Think about your brother. Think about your own son. Think about yourself. And now ask yourself a question. And this, I think, is the most pertinent question today, the most relevant question. Everything else is secondary. Everything else is subordinate. That what has happened to humanity? That on one hand, all the big greedy corporations say that they are working so hard to connect the world. Is this how we are connected? We don't know about each other's tragedies. Just because we are a minority of the world. I'm a liberal person. Let's think about liberal ideas. Let's think about progressive ideas. The most liberal idea is that humanity does not know any border. Am I right? Humanity transcends borders. Humanity is not about being American or being a German or being a Syrian or being an Indian. Humanity is global. Everybody who is born on this earth has a right to the resources of this earth, has a right to free oxygen, has a right to drinking water, has a right to life. Which is why we have created UNO, which is why we have created all these human rights organizations, which is why there is media, free media and free speech, so that if injustice is done to somebody, the media should stand up and fight for us. But all these so-called intellectuals talk about minority, but always ignored minority. I'll tell you how. Because if you look at the global world, 65% of the world is ruled by Christian people and Muslim Islamic people. Hindus are just 10 or 15%, a very small minority. And that's why nobody is interested in them. The genocide of Kashmir took place 30 years ago. It's a sad commentary and absolute failure of all these organizations that even after 30 years, I have to stand here and educate people about this genocide. It's a failure of all our thinkers. It's a failure of all our education. It's an absolute failure of media. And therefore, I am going to conclude with some positive things. I am not here to talk about and criticize the past. I think what this world needs very, very urgently is the level of awareness. What is the point of educating our children about Alexander, about Napoleon, about Akbar and Shah Jahans and Aurangzebs? I fail to understand why do we teach about all these dreaded terrorists who killed people and with the power of sword they created their empires. Is this anything to glorify? A young child who's born who doesn't even want to know about these tyrants is being educated and he's being asked questions on that, and his qualification is whether he can answer those questions or not. They should be taught about the pain and suffering of the world so that when they grow up, it is never repeated. I very strongly today, like the US congressmen passed resolution sitting here when they have no bloody business in Kashmir, I want to pass, all of us to pass a resolution that at least every Indian child must in school be taught about Kashmir genocide and the Sikh massacre and about every kind of a riot and killing so that when they grow up, they learn what not to do. I want to pass a resolution that every student of India, every young Muslim and Hindu, every single child in Kashmir Valley and everywhere should be taken on these, not to these Udaipurs and Jaipurs where all these big palaces are built on the sweat and blood of poor people. They should be taken to all these destroyed temples. And they should be taught that nobody has a power, nobody should have the power to destroy any culture, any faith, any belief. And these temples are what? Somebody calls them place of faith. I call them beauty, I call them architecture, I call them, they are great excellence. Look how we have built out of one stone, one rock, such great things. We have destroyed them. We have destroyed the soul of humanity. What have we become? We have become so numb. Yesterday I was seeing all these students of JNU, they were singing Azadi, Azadi. Do they even realize that when these Kashmiri Hindus were killed, those bloody terrorists were singing Azadi, Azadi, and today in one of the premium institutes of India, these young boys are singing Azadi, Azadi. They don't even know the context of that, and these professors are standing and defending them. And such a useless media that says it's free speech. Can you do that in Germany? There's a very good friend of mine who lives in Washington, D.C. He's from Jewish community. He came and assisted me in Mumbai. And one day I came to my office wearing a t-shirt which had a Hindu swastika in that. He got very upset. He said, Vivek sir, you can't do that. I said, why? This is our religious symbol. There is no house you will find in villages in India and anywhere where the symbol is not there. This means good luck. It actually means sacred. It's got a sacred meaning. He said, no. Sir, you are a creative person. Your art reaches the entire world. You don't know who's watching your work, where in the world. I totally understand that somebody will misunderstand, but that is why, as an evolved person, as a creative person, you must be sensitive even to that unaware person. Because he will misunderstand you. You should not give him a reason to misunderstand you. And that was a changing moment in my life. And I realized sometimes we say, so what? This is our symbol. No. You have no right to hurt people. We have to be sensitive. You have to be compassionate about especially uneducated people, illiterate people who do not know. It is our job, the qualified people. Our job is not to put the pictures on Facebook with Mercedes and BMWs and big mansions and houses and the holiday trips. Our real job should be how we are in a position of power, how we can educate, how we can make people aware about these killings and violence. If you look at the history of humanity, it's full of violence, nothing else. You go to Netflix. Seriously, I did a research. I went to Netflix, Hotstar, HBO, all these. Look at all these web series. We are saying, oh, look at the greatness of cinema. 9 out of them, 10 are full of violence. The Roman Empire, this empire, the Russian Empire, sir, seriously, all of them are only about killings. You learn a lot from them, but at the same time, it is our job and duty to create awareness about terrorism. We have to expose them. We cannot be politically correct about that, because no other country has suffered more than my country from terrorism. Second thing I appeal that we should emphasize on education, because that's where the ray of hope is. Imagine which society, despite such brutal, such tragic genocide, never ever retaliated. Not one person. Wherever we go, I don't ask too many questions, even Pallavi, she doesn't ask, but there are 1 or 2 questions I always ask. I said, in last 30 years, your mother was raped, her breasts were cut, she was cut alive on saw machine, your father was shot at. Did you ever feel like taking revenge? The answer is no. Universal no. Not that one person said. Every Kashmiri Pandit said no, never. I said, you must have at least thought about slapping one person. They said no, never. I said, but what happened to that emotion? That pain, that emotion? They said, all we thought about was how to educate our children so that a thing like this is never repeated. How to contribute to humanity, how to take humanity to next level, how to create humanity 2.0 so that nobody ever makes this kind of a mistake, and which is why you will find every single, without exception, every single Kashmiri Pandit family, their children are well studied, they are doctors, engineers, authors, writers, musicians. You will find zero illiteracy in these families. My unit is shooting in Jammu in refugee camp. People are earning 10,000 rupees, but their children are IT graduates and they are working in Microsoft or they're working somewhere. One family they interviewed yesterday, they hardly have any money, but their children are studying in best of the colleges. The other person I interviewed in in Baltimore a few days ago, when they were forced, when they left Kashmir and came to Jammu, his father had to go through a cataract operation. There were 2 sons. And the doctor asked him, should I put, and those times they used to put lenses mechanically, so he asked, should I put expensive lens or a cheaper lens? He thought for 1 second, and he said, of course, cheaper lens, because I don't have money, and whatever money I have, I need to put it to my, for the admission of my children, and I want them to be educated. So, they put the cheaper lens. Few days later, he went blind. Today, one of his sons is a very successful pharmacist in Washington area, and the second son joined Indian Army, and he became a martyr fighting these terrorists in Kabul. His name was Amit Kaur. That is the contribution of this community. That's why I say education. That somebody should do research. I seriously appeal to you. There's no point feeling sad now. All of you are able, powerful people. You should do one thing. put some money in a fund and do one research. Nobody has done it. And find out what is happening with the third generation of Kashmiri Pandit families. My limited research, whatever sampling I have done, I am seeing that most of them are creative people. Either they sing or write or play some instrument or they have creative ideas. I think the only tribute we can pay to Kashmiri genocide and the victims of Kashmiri genocide, those families, that we should try and consolidate that creativity. We should somehow, like heritage, we should preserve it. I went to Auschwitz 2 years ago. It changed my life. It was a life-changing experience. And I pray to God, it should never ever happen in this world. But unfortunately, we were a poor country. We were struggling. We were trying to become self-reliant after hundreds and thousands of years of Muslim Islamic invasion and the British colonial exploitation and oppression. We were trying to rebuild ourselves. We were trying to stand on our feet. We didn't have money and we missed that opportunity to create museums like Auschwitz. Therefore, we cannot showcase the pain and tragedy of Kashmiri Pandit, but we can do as a repentance. We can consolidate this creativity. One gentleman, somebody should definitely think about this. And in the end, my last resolution today is that we should work towards discovering the collective creative consciousness of the world. It brings me to where I began from. Everything around you, every single thing around you is because of our creativity. The only answer to destruction is creation. If you want to rebuild humanity, you have to destroy the old structure. To destroy, to defeat terrorism, we need to discover our creative consciousness. We have to ensure that the next generations, even those young boys and girls, Muslim young boys and girls in Srinagar, who these terrorists have taught them to pick up stones and throw and count, how they learn mathematics, how many stones they have to throw today. That's how they learn mathematics. All these young boys and girls, we should as a society help them discover their creative consciousness. And to discover that creative consciousness, you don't have to go to these Microsofts and Googles and the big corporations. You do not even have to go to the biggest and the greatest countries of the world. You do not even have to look at all the mightiest of the people. Nowhere. All you have to do is visit Kashmir once. Go to Sonmarg. Go to Pahalgam. Hug a Kashmiri Muslim young boy or girl. Hug a Kashmiri Pandit young boy and a girl. And your creative consciousness on its own will arise, because if it does not happen on the land of Rishi Kashyap, trust me, it's never ever going to happen anywhere in the world. Thank you very much. Please, if you want to ask any question, please feel. Yes, sir.
Can you give us a mic?
Yeah, can somebody give him a mic, please? We have another mic? Just one second. Can I get a glass of water, please? Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Agnihotri, I don't have words to thank you. All I can say here is that all those ignorant people that you described, I'm one of them. Even more tragic that I have been through the 1947, where as a young boy, 8 years old, I probably saw 50,000 dead bodies. And I probably saw everything which an 8-year-old boy should not see. We flew in the middle of the night with nothing, and we were lucky enough to wind up after 3 weeks to India, and we were lucky enough to be on the railroad platform for 3 weeks without food or anything. But two things I've noticed. Neither our story and nor Kashmiri story has ever been told. Finally, there's a small museum in Amritsar that they have created. And, my friends there, I went to Auschwitz, and then I came back, and then I realized that my friends here, they worked so hard to make sure the world knows everything about it, and it is now repeated. But sadly, Hindus have not done that. Sadly, India has not done that. And the most sadly is that they're still not doing that. So I'm very grateful to you for raising our consciousness, and I'm very grateful to you for bringing our knowledge base where we can see the tragedy. My one question I have is that, is there any hope politically to ever get out of that mindset? Because I see even now, even in our people who are living over here, they couldn't care less. They really couldn't care less. It doesn't matter. So how do we get out of I could care less and it doesn't matter when you have such a human tragedy facing you all the time?
Perhaps you asked the most difficult question, but yes, impossible takes time. I always say this, and the mantra of my life is impossible takes time, but let's keep hope. And because of hope, after 30 years, finally Kashmir is the integral part of India on 7th of August last year. There are lots of unsolved issues. They are getting corrected. When the house is in a mess, yes, it's true, we want it to be clean and in order instantly, but it takes little time. But my whole problem is that too much dependence on the governments. Governments in democracy work for vote banks, primarily. Now, if there are lots of stupid people are in majority, you will find that the governments take stupid decisions. But if a lot of creative people are in majority, if a lot of humanity is in majority, then they will be forced to take those decisions. Like today, all of us are one. I can see the oneness in this atmosphere. We are not, you're saying, oh, come on, great speech or great. No, we are feeling together. We should learn to eat together, feel together for each other, and we should use social media very creatively. Rather than posting these redundant photographs and posts, we should do once in a while, but we should use it. Every unique voice with your life, like you asked, said something, sir, this you should post on social media. And slowly all of us will writing positive things, creative things, good things. Believe you me, human beings are instinctively good people. It's the wrong education, wrong upbringing which makes them evil. Nobody, every child, if you see every 4 or 5 year old child so beautiful, he doesn't know his religion. What we do? This 5-year-old child is not even asking his parents who is God or what is God. But we start telling him, listen, this is your God. This is how you should pray. This is what you should believe in. A child who's born with the entire universe belonging to him, we start narrowing him down and we start telling him, listen, you belong only to India. He was a global child. He was born on this planet, not in India. Then we tell him Delhi is your city. Then we say this neighborhood is your neighborhood. Then this is your house number. We become so narrow and small. I challenge you today, When you were born, you loved the entire world loved you, oh, beautiful baby. But today, if I ask you, close your eyes and count the number of people who you can depend on unconditionally at any given time, you can't even fill your 10 fingers. Our job should be to increase our circle of trust, and that circle of trust will increase only when we create love, beauty, and happiness in each other's lives. And that's what I meant by creative consciousness. Let's become creative people, problems will solve. The problem is we have become numb people. We have become deaf people. We don't listen. We don't observe. We don't therefore feel. This is my only advice. I'm not a politician, so I don't have a political answer. But I, on behalf of all those people, say sorry to you, because my parents were freedom fighters. My mother at 17 got married, and within 3 months she was in jail. My parents both, my father was caned, hunter, they used to give that punishment. I have seen my family go through that, so I understand the pain little bit. I feel sorry for everybody who was hurt in partition. Anybody else?
It's
9, I think we should.
People can get full.
Yeah, we can do one-on-one. I'm here for another 15 minutes. If you want, you can just chat with me. So thank you very much again.